been 24 years since my diagnosis. I remember one time, I think this was in my keynote actually, like I was in the bathroom of our university library and I was having a panic attack and I was on the floor because it was cold. It was kind of calming for me and I couldn't call out for help because my friends were all outside of the bathroom, like they were studying, and I thought I was having a heart attack. But after that panic attack, I think it was like a huge wake-up call that something is really wrong. So I talked to my parents, and they took me to see a doctor. But, you know, my parents said to me, like, of course they're trying to protect me. They said, don't tell anyone. You know, this is a really big secret. Like, people can't know about this. Don't even tell your roommates. And I lived with two of my good friends, you know, from school. But I had to hide it. And then, so of course, I made it mean that, oh, it means something is wrong with me. Like, I'm broken. And that's why my keynote speech title is Beautifully Unbroken, because it's taken me so long, 20 years to be exact, to actually let go of that shame.
Hello everybody, welcome to episode 17 of the Dairy Mom podcast. My name is Yolanda. I am the founder and CEO of the Dairy Mom. We inspire, educate and empower mothers who may be struggling to reclaim their dreams or who may have temporarily set aside their ambitions due to the demands of motherhood. On the Dairy Mom podcast, we bring you powerful stories from audacious mothers around the world who defy societal expectations and harness their strength to juggle both roles of motherhood and the pursuit of their personal and professional ambitions successfully. Before we begin today's conversation, I want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you to all of our new subscribers and thank you to all who have been with us from the beginning. I appreciate you all very much. If you are yet to subscribe to our channel, please do so by hitting the subscribe button. This helps our channel to grow. Today's episode is the first part of our two-part series on motherhood and mental wellness. The new year has begun and stress levels are already mounting up from schools, workplaces, and even in their homes. As parents, and particularly as mothers, how do we cope with these stress levels and ensure that they do not negatively impact our mental well-being? What if you've received a medical diagnosis for a mental health challenge? How do you navigate this? And how do you ensure that you live a more fulfilling and balanced lifestyle? To navigate this conversation, we are honored to have our mental health coach, Yollanda Zhang, join us right here in Canada. Yolanda is a mom, serial entrepreneur, speaker, coach, and mental health advocate who helps people live their best lives. With a background in engineering, corporate sales, and teaching, Yolanda draws from her personal experiences, including her journey with bipolar disorder, to guide others towards a more fulfilling and balanced lifestyle. If you are ready for today's episode, grab your pens and notebooks and join me as I speak to our special guest. Hello, Yolanda. Welcome to the Dairy Mom podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Hi, Diana. It's great to be here.
I'm so honored to have you today, and I feel like we are going to have a very, very interesting conversation. Like I read in your bio, you are a serial entrepreneur, you are a keynote speaker, you are a mental health coach, you are a mother. Like, you have a lot of things going on with you, and I am very, very keen on getting to know a lot about you, and especially with your mental health journey and how you are out there impacting lives through coaching and through your foundation also for teens or for girls, right? So we want to learn a lot about Yolanda. So I want to say thank you once again for coming on the Dairy Mom podcast. Thank you. Okay, so Yeah. All right. So let's dive right in. Can you walk us through your childhood? Growing up, what did you observe as a child in terms of parenting dynamics, in terms of motherhood? What was it like for you? And what did you think it would be like when you grow up?
Yeah. That's definitely a very loaded question, right? There's
Right.
so many pieces. So I think, I'll share something that I shared recently in an event where I spoke at. I said I actually had three mothers
Okay.
growing up. And mostly because I was separated from my biological mother when I was just 4 months old. And I was raised by my grandmother. So she really provided me, all the needs for growing up, all the needs for nourishment. Like she really took care of me really, really well with so much love. Um, but my aunt is a third mother to me because she really provided me with a lot of emotional support and I really connected with her. And so that was sort of what my speech was about is that, I grew up with having three mothers, one who gave birth to me, one who raised me and gave me all the biological needs, and then another mother who really was there for me emotionally. And then when I was reunited with my biological mother at around 4 years old, of course, she took on all those roles as well. And I think having been exposed to the different styles of parenting from a very young age really taught me a lot and informed my own parenting when I became a mom.
Oh wow, wow, wow. Having three mothers and everybody, playing like a different role in your life.
Hmm.
Wow, that's a very beautiful experience to have. And I think I read somewhere on your LinkedIn profile that you lost your grandmother at some point and that motivated you to start your foundation for teens. Like, can you walk us through that? Um,
Yeah. Well, actually, I would say my grandmother really inspired me in so many things.
okay,
She had the most significant and profound impact on who I became
okay,
as a person, as a mother, as an adult. And so when she passed away 7 years ago, I launched a nonprofit
okay,
called Girls Strong. And it's actually meant for young girls,
okay,
6 to 12, because I truly believed that at the very foundation of who we are as human beings, we need to be supported as early, as often as possible.
yeah,
And actually, there are already a lot of programs and foundations and possibilities out there for teens because I think even just like the funding formula from government or charities are usually for when problems exist, when they see problems. They're seeing drug and alcohol abuse, they're seeing teenage pregnancy, they're seeing school truancy. Like, so then they're like, we need to put money to solve those problems,
yeah,
which is great, very needed. But I think that we need to address those areas before they even become problems. So to do that proactively is so important, which is what Girl Strong is really all about. Is
okay,
let's give our girls the tools that they need to live a limitless life, which is our vision and mission. And that way, maybe when they become teenagers, they wouldn't have those issues.
yeah,
And I think that's what I know in honoring my grandmother's memory, I think that's what I think she would be so proud and happy with because as our child, she was a child bride
oh,
and
okay,
never had the opportunity to be educated.
okay,
So she was illiterate until she became a mother herself,
okay,
and which was my mother. And then she wanted to learn to read, and she worked all day
okay.
in a factory, and then she went to night school. to learn to read, because she wanted to be able to read to her kids, and she didn't want to be an illiterate mother. And so that drive for learning and that sense of curiosity, hard work, and resilience is really what I feel I took away from my grandmother.
Okay.
And actually, before she passed away, so 10 years ago, so 3 years before she passed away, I felt this huge importance of making sure that my daughter can speak Mandarin, which is my mother tongue.
Yeah.
And I wanted my daughter to be able to talk to my grandmother in Mandarin.
Okay.
Because both of my parents live in Canada and they speak English and it's fine. But my grandmother doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
She lives in China. So 10 years ago, my grandmother actually was the inspiration for me to launch a Mandarin school in Toronto. And I'm proud to say that, you know, my daughter was able to meet my grandmother, speak to her in Mandarin just 3 months before she passed away. And it's been just like the most, you know, amazing accomplishment, because my husband doesn't speak Mandarin. And we don't live in a community with a lot of Mandarin speakers. To be able to foster that in my daughter was so important to me, so that she can connect with my grandmother.
That's so beautiful. Like knowing that, okay, like I really want this connection between my grandmother and my daughter, and so I'm going to take the initiative to actually start a Mandarin school so my daughter can connect with my grandmother. So that would be like a great grandmother to your daughter, and they were still able to find that connection before she passed. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. May your grandmother so rest in peace. But that also means you've gone ahead to, like, since you've started a Mandarin school, you've gone ahead to educate like other people from your nationality who live in Canada or in Toronto to also have the opportunity to learn Mandarin. Is that right?
Yeah, and you know, it's not actually just people who are identified as Chinese.
Chinese, yes.
Our Mandarin school has a very diverse students and parents community.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually what's so beautiful about it is that people from, you know, all colors, shapes, and sizes that are interested in learning Mandarin, learning more about Chinese culture, feel comfortable to be learning at my school. And so my school is called Panda Mandarin. And now both my husband and I are running the school together. We're both engineers by training. So my husband actually left his full-time corporate job as an engineer and joined me as an entrepreneur to run our Mandarin school together.
Wow, that's so beautiful, and I'm fascinated by that. I want to come into like your moving to your childhood experience from childhood into adulthood, when you started like your career, university days. What was it like for you? And then I want to jump into like mental health. At what point in your journey, as an adult, did you notice something was a bit different, and then like you decided to seek for help, and then you got the feedback that you got from the doctor? Can you walk us through that experience?
Sure. Did you want to talk about university first or the mental health?
University.
Sure. So I actually always wanted to pursue a degree in psychology.
Okay.
Because I've just always been naturally fascinated, interested in human behavior. And I remember in high school, my teachers would say, you should be a teacher. Like, that's what my teachers would tell me. Like, you should be a teacher. But I was really good in math and physics. So everybody was kind of pushing me either to become a doctor my mom was a pediatrician. My dad was a PhD in biochemistry. So they're all in the medical sciences. So then I was being pushed to be a doctor. Except I was really afraid of blood and very, very adverse to dissections. Like even in biology, I would get my lab partner to do all the dissections. I would write the report. Like I'm really not, I can't do that. So I knew that medicine was not in the cards for me. But because my grades were so great in math and sciences, physics, chemistry, and biology, my guidance counselor said, you should go into engineering. And also there are not that many girls in engineering, so this would be a great field for you to explore. And so I did. I got into University of Waterloo in system design engineering. And at that time, it was like the toughest program to get into in all of at Waterloo, but possibly like all of Canada. And so I was really happy, but I wasn't really thinking, what do I really want to do? Which was psychology, actually. And so kind of blindly, but also not blindly, I just went the way that everybody told me I should go. And I didn't love it. I didn't love engineering as much as I had hoped that I would. And so I started to look to pursuing a minor in psychology while I was in university. And so I would take courses, but engineering is a very demanding program. So I wasn't able to finish my psychology minor. So, but I'm happy to tell you that this January, so almost a year ago, I started my master's degree in counseling psychology. So that's what I'm actually doing now. And I have 1.5 more year left. So my goal is to hopefully become a registered psychotherapist. And it's also going to inform my keynote speaking with my corporate training practice. So it's going to just inform a lot of things for me. And I'm also realizing a childhood dream of pursuing a degree in psychology. So that's kind of the university sort of story. But, after engineering, I worked for a few years in the industry. And then I actually went back to school again. Actually, the week before my wedding, I started school at U of T. And I was in teachers college. And I still remember that Monday, everybody was introducing themselves, and we had to say something that's really unique about us. I said, I'm getting married this Sunday. Oh, sorry, I'm getting married this Saturday. And everybody's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm getting married this Saturday. So that was so I didn't go on a honeymoon after my wedding because I'm in school. So this master's degree right now that I'm doing is actually my 3rd degree. And it's going to be my 4th career transition.
Oh my gosh. That's like a journey of trying to discover yourself and going after what you really want. So it's like, engineering, it doesn't work it didn't work for me. I don't really like it. Then you switched to tried psychology, didn't finish, but later you decided to go back and still pursue it. Then you went to teachers college, so you're like a teacher, like a trained teacher, and then now you're working towards your psychology degree, and then you also finished your engineering degree. Oh my gosh, you are loaded.
Well, my husband makes fun of me by saying, people collect coins, people collect, whatever. He said, "Are you collecting degrees?
You're collecting degrees.
Like your hobby now? Just like, how many degrees are you going to collect in such different industries as well?" Yeah. So I don't think that I'm collecting degrees. I think I'm just a really naturally curious person, and I love learning so much that I just really enjoy the process. So I think that's why I've been back to school so many times.
I think I find a bit of myself in you. I also have an engineering background, and I
didn't know.
I have an engineering background, and I constantly find myself studying and getting degrees and certifications and all that. So I really can connect with you like on that level. And sometimes like, okay, what am I doing all of these degrees? But I just feel like, okay, I love learning, and I just keep preparing myself for any future opportunities. But I just love investing in myself, and it's just what I love to do. So yeah, tell your husband that there's nothing wrong. It's just that's what you love, and there's somebody like you.
I would love to do that. I mean, we need to have another meeting another time where I get to learn a bit more about you too.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would love that. A fellow engineer, I had no idea. That's
Exactly. Awesome. Yeah. So I want to come into your journey. I think I watched your keynote speech on Beautifully Unbroken, and that touched me so much. You shared your experience with bipolar, and when you were diagnosed with it, second year of university. I want you to walk us through that experience. At what point did you realize that okay, something was different, and when did you go and seek help, maybe from a doctor, and then when you were diagnosed with that, what was that feeling like, and how have you managed to go through all of that like process?
Mm, yeah, it's definitely been a long journey. So it's been 24 years
Wow.
since my diagnosis, and I mean it really happened very, I would say, like quickly,
Mm-hmm.
because I have always been a really high achieving, hardworking student.
I can imagine.
And when I hit second year university, I remember all of a sudden I couldn't wake up in the mornings for class.
Okay.
The alarm would go and I would turn it off, and just, I can't get up. I can't get out of bed, which is very rare. And I didn't know why. And then I started to have panic attacks. I remember one time, I think this was in my keynote actually, like I was in the bathroom of our university library, and I was having a panic attack, and I was on the floor because it was cold. It was kind of calming for me, and I couldn't call out for help because my friends were all outside of the bathroom, like they were studying, and I thought I was having a heart attack. Like I thought my heart was going to jump out of my chest, because I didn't know what a panic attack was at that time. And I think that's what made me realize something is really wrong. Because when I couldn't get out of bed, and I was not interested in doing homework, or just feeling really tired all the time, I was like, oh, maybe I'm just being lazy, or maybe I'm not smart enough. Like, of course, I was blaming myself.
Yeah.
I didn't think that I was sick. I didn't think there was any other reason other than, like, there's something wrong with me as a person, not, like, mental health-wise. But after that panic attack, I think was, like, a huge wake-up call that something is really wrong. So I talked to my parents, and they took me to see a doctor. But, my parents said to me, like, of course, they're trying to protect me, and they said, don't tell anyone. This is a really big secret. Like, people can't know about this. Don't even tell your roommates. And I lived with two of my good friends, from school, but I had to hide it. And then, so of course, I made it mean that, oh, it means something is wrong with me. Like, I'm broken. And that's why my keynote speech title is Beautifully Unbroken, because it's taken me so long, 20 years to be exact, to actually let go of that shame, to let go of that internal experience of feeling like something is wrong with me, that I'm broken, just because I live with this condition that I have no control over. So I have influence, obviously, over this, but I have no control over how it happens, when it happens. So that's really how it started. And then, of course, it was just many years of trying different kinds of therapies, medications, different doctors. And I don't need to tell you or anyone that our mental health care is not where it needs to be.
Okay.
And I feel like despite of everyone's best intentions, it has been a very, very difficult journey for me. I have had over 33 different combinations of medications that I've tried and failed, and different kinds of therapies. I think if you could suggest it, I probably have tried it.
Oh, wow.
To try to get better, to try to regain my independence, to regain my ability to be productive, even to regain my ability to be a mother. It's been like a really tough journey.
First of all, I want to say I'm sorry for that experience, but I want to come into something that you really touched on, like when your parents discovered that this was the condition, or this was what the doctor said. Okay, this is the diagnosis. Be quiet about it. Don't tell anybody because it's very shameful. Mental health is something that it's more like we don't talk about a lot in our society, and like you mentioned, we attach a lot of shame to it. And so when we go through that, or when we are diagnosed with one condition or the other, it's like don't say anything, but then it affects the person. Like I want you to break it down for us. Like, if somebody is going through a mental health challenge, what's the best thing to do to be able to have them break free from the shame that comes with it, and to embrace it and seek for help, like openly, because people would live with it, and like you said, okay, don't say anything, and you had to bottle it up for 20 years, and not until you started opening up that you started finding some healing, through the journey. So I want you to really take your time and break that piece down for us, so that anybody who might be going through mental health issues, or knows somebody who might be going through it but are not willing to open up, they can tell them something.
Yeah. I would say that the first thing is to have compassion for yourself.
Okay.
I would never say to anyone, oh, you have to share your mental health story.
Okay.
No one has to share.
Okay.
Until they are ready.
Okay.
And so I would say the very first thing is to have compassion for yourself and for your own experience. And if shame is what it takes for you to experience in that healing process, then shame is what you have to experience. So for me, I said it took 20 years to share, but it took 20 years for me to share publicly.
Okay.
I've been sharing throughout that time. Okay. The first people I shared with were my parents. And I think having trusted people in your life and slowly building up that tolerance to share is so important. I would never say to somebody, you just got to share openly and rip off the Band-Aid, as the saying goes. I don't think that's a good idea at all, because not everyone deserves to hear your story.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's something that has a lot of pressure on people living with mental illness or living with a condition that might bring shame to themselves, where they think, oh, I need to share. Like, I can only get better if I share.
Okay.
Or if I help other people, or if, conditions, many different conditions. That's actually not true. Everybody's different. For me, a huge turning point of my healing did happen after I started sharing more openly.
Okay.
But again, it took 20 years for me to do that. Many, many steps happened leading up to that. Where now when people say to me, oh, you're so brave for sharing, you know, you're so courageous, I don't feel brave or courageous, because to me, I'm just sharing a matter of fact. This is what I deal with. This is what I live with. There is no more shame that I feel. So to me, how is that brave? Because to me, brave is when you do something that you are afraid of, but you do it anyways. Like my daughter getting a flu shot, that is brave, because she's really scared of needles. And so for her to get a flu shot, I said, that is brave. That is much braver than me even sharing on media about my bipolar disorder journey, because I don't have any concerns about sharing. I don't care what people think now. I've already healed past that. And so I would say to people who might be, whether they're new to a diagnosis or they're in the thick of it and they're feeling a lot of shame, I would say, please have self-compassion. Think of what you would say if it was your best friend dealing with this, if it was your daughter, if it was your son, if it was someone you love and care about. What would you say to them? Because we are so much kinder to other people than we are to ourselves, which is totally backwards, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. You really need to pour in yourself as much love and compassion as you can before you pour that out to others. So that's what I've been learning as well. It's a lifelong journey, for sure.
What were some of the, should I say, coping mechanisms, or like, not coping mechanisms? It, like you mentioned, it took you 20 years to get to the point where you now start sharing publicly. So you've really taken the time to work on yourself, to come to accept it. I know when you have, you know, a diagnosis, like a mental health diagnosis, oftentimes, like, kind of, it hits you hard, because it's not like today you are sick and, oh, my head aches, and then you know your head aches, and then, you know, you can just drink some medicine and then you just get away with it. But sometimes it stays with you for, you know, years, and coming to the realization that, okay, am I going to live with this, like, for the rest of my life? And, you know, trying to process all that. How did you find that strength to, number one, embrace it? Because sometimes you can be even in denial, like this is not true. You know, that you go through all of those, like, emotions before, like, it gets to a point where you now start, okay, this is it, and then now you start, you know, opening up. So I want you to, like, walk us through the piece, that process, because that's where a lot of people struggle with, you know, embracing the fact, and then, you know, before having self-compassion, and then, you know, healing, before now it gets to the point where, okay, I can say it and then nobody can make me feel bad about it. Like, so please walk us through that experience.
I think that's a really hard question to answer for me.
Okay.
Because there is no formula that can work for everybody. So even sharing with you, and which I'm happy to, what worked for me is not necessarily a boilerplate of steps that could work for others.
Right.
And this is a question that I get asked in, like, different interviews quite often. And so what I usually share, or what I think makes sense, is sharing about really what worked for me. But preface it with, I'm not saying that everybody
should do this,
or that this will work for everybody, because everyone is so different, everybody's experience is so different, which is why I said you start with compassion. That's really where you need to begin. And I think I learned a lot of that from Dr. Gabor Mate. I don't know if you ever read any of his books.
Yeah. I read it on your, like, LinkedIn, what you learned from him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I took the Compassion Inquiry program that he co-founded, and I think that was a huge shift in my perspective as well. So I think for me, naturally, I don't really care about what other people think of me.
Okay.
I think that was always the case. I think because of my grandmother, my mom, my aunt, like the three mothers, they really instilled in me a strong sense of confidence and self-esteem.
Okay.
So I think from a very young age, I didn't really let other people's opinions impact me so much. You can call it a coping mechanism, you can call it a strength, whatever, but I really think that at the root of it really helps me now a lot to not care and share. Because a very common question people ask me is, oh, don't you worry about what people might think when you share so vulnerably? And I say, I have to stop and think, do I care what people think? And I have to say, no, I don't. And I think part of that is because I'm actually okay, more so now, and especially since the pandemic. I'm really okay with being alone. Like, I don't really need people who are not really in my corner to be with me. So I actually feel like sharing about bipolar disorder is the best litmus test for who is meant to be in my corner, who is meant to be in my village. Because the people who judge me or the people who are not supportive, they just naturally sort themselves out. I'm okay with that. Like, that's better. That's better than me trying to have to find out who I am meant to have in my life.
Wow, what an impactful story. Yolanda made a very profound statement. She said, if you are going through mental health challenges, be sure to have self-compassion and don't forget to pour into yourself because you can't pour from an empty cup. We are taking a break here. We'll bring you a part 2 of our conversation with Yolanda in episode 18 on February 2nd, 2025. Be sure not to miss it. If you want to follow Yolanda, you'll find her on LinkedIn at Yollanda Zhang. You'll find the link to her LinkedIn page in the description of this video. And you can also visit her website at www.yollandazhang.com. We want to thank you all for staying with us up until this point. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the like button, share and subscribe. This helps our channel to grow. If you want to connect with the Daring Mom, you'll find us on LinkedIn, TikTok and on Facebook at The Daring Mom. And on Instagram, you'll find us at @the Daring Mom. Thank you once again for staying with us today. And as I wrap up, my question to you is, what is your hashtag? The Daring Mom story. Join me and let's do this together. My name is Diana Adair and I am The Daring Mom.